The Uninvited Guest. It was a humid summer evening in the small town of Maplewood. Rachel, a young woman in her early 20s, was home alone, relishing the rare quiet. Her parents had gone out of town for the weekend, and she planned to enjoy a few movies and snacks. As she settled on the couch, the weather began to change. The sky, clear and blue just moments ago, turned an ominous grey. Rachel loved thunderstorms, finding the sound of rain and thunder comforting. She turned off the lights, lit a few candles, and prepared to watch her favorite horror movie. The wind picked up, howling through the trees outside, and the first drops of rain began to patter against the windows. As the storm intensified, the thunderclaps grew louder, shaking the old house. Rachel was halfway through her movie when she heard a distinct thud from the basement. She paused, her heart racing, listening intently. The storm outside was fierce, and she tried to convince herself that it was just the wind. But then she heard it again, louder this time, a clear, deliberate bang. Gathering her courage, Rachel grabbed a flashlight and headed toward the basement door. She hesitated, her hand trembling as she reached for the doorknob. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door and descended the creaky wooden steps. The basement was dark and cold, with only the faint beam of her flashlight cutting through the blackness. She scanned the room, her flashlight beam catching old furniture and boxes. Suddenly, the light flickered, and she heard another sound, this time closer, like someone or something moving. Panic set in, but Rachel forced herself to move forward. Her light caught the figure of a man crouched in the corner, his clothes soaked and dirty. His eyes glinted menacingly in the dim light. Rachel screamed, dropping the flashlight. She turned to run, but the man lunged, grabbing her ankle. She kicked frantically, managing to break free. She raced up the stairs, slamming the basement door behind her. Heart pounding, she called the police, barricading herself in her bedroom until they arrived. When the police searched the basement, they found evidence of a break-in through a small window. The intruder, an escaped convict, had sought shelter from the storm. Rachel was safe, but the terror of that night stayed with her long after the storm had passed. The Lost Highway. Jake was driving home late one night after visiting friends in a neighboring town. He took the old highway, a route he knew well. As he drove, a sudden storm rolled in, the rain so heavy that his windshield wipers struggled to keep up. The thunder was deafening, and flashes of lightning illuminated the deserted road. Visibility was poor, and Jake slowed down, gripping the steering wheel tightly. He knew there was a rest stop a few miles ahead where he could wait out the storm. As he approached a sharp bend, his headlights caught a figure standing on the side of the road, soaked and shivering. Jake hesitated, but decided to help. He pulled over, and the figure, a young woman, ran towards his car. "Thank you so much," she said, her voice trembling. "My car broke down, and I've been stuck here for hours." Jake let her in, and they drove in silence, the storm raging around them. The woman introduced herself as Emily and explained that she was trying to get to her family's cabin up the road. Jake offered to take her there, and she gratefully accepted. As they drove, Jake noticed Emily glancing nervously at the road behind them. He asked if she was okay, and she confessed that she felt like someone had been watching her before he arrived. Dismissing it as paranoia brought on by the storm, Jake assured her they would reach the cabin soon. After what felt like an eternity, they arrived at a small, isolated cabin. Emily thanked Jake profusely and invited him inside to dry off. He declined, eager to get home, but as he drove away, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He looked back and saw Emily standing on the porch, watching him. A few miles down the road, Jake's car began to sputter and finally stalled. Frustrated, he got out and popped the hood. As he worked, he heard a noise low, growling sound. He turned and saw a pair of glowing eyes in the darkness, just beyond the reach of his headlights. Panic set in as the creature emerged from the woods, its form barely visible in the rain. Jake bolted back to his car, locking the doors. The creature circled the vehicle, scratching at the windows. Desperate, Jake called 911, but his phone had no signal. He was trapped. The minutes felt like hours, until finally, the storm began to die down, and the creature disappeared into the woods. Jake's car finally started, and he sped home, his heart racing. The next day, he recounted his ordeal to a friend, who looked at him in shock. Jake, his friend said slowly, that cabin has been abandoned for years. Emily and her family died in a car accident on that highway a decade ago. The shadow in the lightning. Mia loved photography and had a particular fondness for capturing storms. One evening, she set out to photograph our approaching thunderstorm from a hill overlooking her town. She set up her camera, thrilled at the prospect of capturing the perfect shot of lightning. As the storm rolled in, the sky turned a deep, bruised purple, and the first flashes of lightning split the sky. Mia clicked away, excitedly reviewing the images on her camera. The storm grew more intense, and the wind howled through the trees. Lightning struck in rapid succession, illuminating the landscape in eerie, strobe-like bursts. In one of these bursts, Mia saw something that made her blood run cold. A shadowy figure stood in the field below, motionless. She blinked, convinced it was a trick of the light, but the next flash of lightning revealed the figure had moved closer. Panic set in. She continued to snap pictures, hoping to understand what she was seeing. The figure moved impossibly fast, appearing in different locations with each lightning strike. It seemed to be coming toward her. Heart pounding, Mia packed up her gear and ran to her car, constantly glancing over her shoulder. She drove home in a state of terror, unable to shake the image of the shadowy figure. At home, Mia locked all the doors and windows, but the storm seemed to follow her. Thunder boomed, and lightning lit up the sky, casting shadows that danced across her walls. She decided to review the photos on her computer, hoping to make sense of what she had seen. As she scrolled through the images, her heart nearly stopped. In each photo, the figure was closer, its features more defined. It was tall and thin, with eyes that seemed to glow with an unnatural light. In the final photo, taken just before she fled, the figure was right behind her. A sudden loud bang on her front door made her jump. Gathering her courage, Mia peeked through the peephole but saw nothing. The storm outside was relentless, and the power suddenly went out, plunging the house into darkness. She fumbled for a flashlight and decided to wait out the storm in her room. Hours passed before the storm finally abated. Exhausted, Mia fell into a restless sleep. In the morning, she awoke to find muddy footprints leading from her front door to her bedroom window. The window was open, curtains fluttering in the breeze. Terrified, Mia called the police, who searched the property but found no one. The footprints were the only evidence that anyone had been there. Though she never saw the figure again, the photos remained a chilling reminder of that stormy night.